Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay, so we have seen two values, amanitvam and adambitvam. One is about demanding respect for your real accomplishments. Dambitvam involves actually pretending to have achievements which you actually don't have, and so there is a little exaggeration, misrepresentation, and then but the main motive is you want respect from people, right, by exaggerating yourself. And we saw that the problems it creates in terms of our psyche, our mental conflict. And if you want a clean mind, then you need to address these issues and you need to clear yourself so that, because a mind which is distorted and a mind which understands the truth, they are contradictory. So this is why you need a clean mind, right, where the truth can abide. You can't have two things simultaneously, confusion and knowledge. So the distorted ways of being, thinking, it all has to clear way first in order for the reality to sit in your mind. Okay, so this is why taking care of these distortions becomes very important. Now, in the third value is what we call Ahimsa. And Ahimsa Ahimsa, if you translate, it becomes non-violence. And this is again, as I told you, it's one of the most fundamental values. Do you want to sit here?
Complete side?
Yeah, but just you can sit here, please. So, Ahimsa means non-violence, and according to us, this is one of the most important and most basic value that everybody has to learn to cultivate, and that is to not to hurt anybody. And this actually, we think that many people ask me, but we are not murderers and we are not killers. So what is, yes, of course we are all following Ahimsa, but actually this value is a little bit more subtle than it's not just about murderers, obviously not, but it's about three levels of Ahimsa. One is at the level of thought, at the level of speech, and action. And at the level of thought, really, if you keep nursing, thoughts about whether it is a given specific person or about a general community or a society, and it keeps getting reinforced and reinforced and reinforced, it becomes a reality for you. And then there is so much generalization involved. There are so many intricacies which are missed out. And the mind starts creating that as a reality. And then it keeps you away from what the true nature of things are. So at the level of thought, it's very, very important because we all build up. I read one article which is a very interesting thing, that when you first think about a given thing, there is already some bias because you don't see the totality of things. But the second time you think about it, you add your bias. Why? Because from what you think, you build further. So it takes you further away from reality. And what happens is, over a period of time, your thought world becomes different from what the reality is, and you're caught there, right? So, very simple example is given, that you pass somebody and you said hello, and the person did not reply, and your mind within seconds can go into being very hurt and feeling very sad and sense of rejection, to anger towards that person, saying that the person is so arrogant and the person is like this. So what happens is, a very big thing starts, and perhaps the possibility is that the person was preoccupied with something and didn't notice, or this thought life is something. How much are you building on thoughts? We have to be very careful about. And sometimes it all can come under the facade of it being intellectual, and being highly dismissive of societies, of politicians, of there are the time that it actually came out the most was at the time of COVID, for example, right? So the anger, right? People were frustrated. People didn't know what to do. And you are in a different position from a person who has to look after the whole country, right? And the easiest thing people did in India, I don't know about how it was in Europe, was to just kind of be so critical and so dismissive and so harsh with the government.
Yeah, same.
Same?
But it was correct.
But it's more intricate than that. Please understand that nothing is like so black and white, right? There are complex. The situations are complex. There are grays. You are in a different position than the government, right? They have to think about the finances. They have to think about providing in general, and they can't do everything. You can't even manage one home and 5 people in it. And they have to manage, at least in India, billions. So when you understand that, you may not agree, and that's okay. You can have an opinion, but this anger and this projection and dismissive the thing and completely negate, that shows that the pressure is within you. If you're just saying that, yeah, I don't agree, how you express it, and then perhaps this could be better, that is good. I mean, it's good to be critical. I mean, not just accept everything, oh yeah, everything is wonderful. No, I'm not, even Gita is not talking about that. But the pressure with what it all comes, and we don't realize it. So there was, somebody wrote a poem. Because unfortunately, I mean, this is unfortunate, it is true, I don't want to deny that there was a few bodies which were found abundant in the waters. So people were angry during COVID. So I understand that. It's not that I don't understand that, but the kind of things that people write, that he's a murderer now, somebody throws somebody, and he has got nothing, the Prime Minister has got nothing to do with somebody throwing a body and discarding the body, not knowing what to do out of fear or out of helplessness or whatever. But the entire anger gets projected, and people are angry, and you use social media to send messages to thousands of people, and at the time where each one has to learn to be empathetic and to take care of themselves, it just creates this frenzy of so much negativity and dissatisfaction. And we have to be careful about that. We also participate in that. So the opinions that we have, you can have opinions and you can disagree with people. But just this exaggeration and projecting anger on others, it only shows that you are angry. The anger within you is not resolved. The frustration within you is not resolved, and therefore it just comes out towards people, towards communities, towards government, towards economy. It's all, all pressure. So somebody was asking a kind of a Swamiji once that, yeah, there are issues and we need to talk about it. It's not like everything is hunky-dory and beautiful. You don't want to live under that illusion either. So how do you know that you are projecting or you are just being objective, right? So discerning is positive thing, right? Viveka is important, but projecting is a problem. So how do you know that when are you projecting and when you are being objective? How do you distinguish for yourself, right? And he used to always say that when you are relatively objective, you are able to talk about things without yourself getting all heated up and shaken.
Yeah. Getting emotional.
Getting all emotional, getting all hyper, getting all nervous and all that. That shows that the pressure is here. Right, it's and it is projected outside. If you are just able to be analytical and think about things and just give your opinion, which is whatever opinion, then it is not coming from your pressure. It's coming from a certain objectivity. So this is something that we all need to understand. Now that anger towards communities and leaders is one thing, but how many of us carry resentment towards some people who you think did not treat you well?
I know people that don't show emotions, but they are very sure that what they say is true.
Absolutely. But that itself shows that there is a certain pressure. So this is what, and I feel now, I mean, I don't want to, but Swamiji used to say, you come and you start speaking to me. In a few minutes, I know exactly, what is your level. And you may not say anything, and you may appear as very stern and very, this thing. But even your body language, your face, everything, and what you say within these few sentences that you utter gives away your how you are thinking, right? So you're absolutely right that some people don't show that anger, but it all comes out in some very rigid opinions, dismissive. They think only they are right. There is some issue there, right? So without listening to somebody, if you just negate, these are all problems. It all shows up. Right? Even before, just simple examples, right? Even before the class starts, if somebody starts by saying Vedanta is intellectual, I haven't, or anybody has not even started teaching. So what it means is that there are so many pre-notions, preconditions, beliefs, and we are not willing to come out of it. And there is certain projection, there is certain rigidity, there is certain closeness. You are not just relaxed and open and then being reasonable. So these thought life violence is a very big thing. Right? And the other thing which is also, people ask me this question and they get angry the way I answer. One of the things very common when you sit and teach, people project a lot of things on you sometimes. Yeah. And it's true, and you have to be ready for it. and you can't get shaken, right?
But you can protect you.
Yeah, and in fact you don't need protection, there is Ishvara.
Yeah.
You really can't, you have to rise so above all of this. Otherwise you are caught in the same game and same, this ninja, always fighting the world and protecting oneself. And right? So, there is, now, what was I saying is that this particular resentment, so one question people ask me, suppose, and it's all, they are not talking about themselves, they are talking about scenarios which are somebody. Suppose somebody was abused in childhood. How will that person get over resentment towards, the person who, when you were a child, you were violated? It's a legitimate question, right? I mean, it's true. It's very deep. It's not easy. I don't want to pretend that it is easy. I don't want to be dismissive about it because it is extremely deep. But what you really need to ask yourself, right, is, do I want to live my whole life based on one event and being bitter and being angry and being resentful and carrying that burden throughout my life? Or I want to, yes, acknowledge and I want to process and I somehow want to make my life work for me. That is a question you have to ask yourself. I can't answer that. So what does it mean? We are not talking about forgiving others. This is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the resentment that you carry with you contaminates you and doesn't allow you to be free. And you have to make a choice, do I want to be free or I want to be caught in this particular thing and keep repeating it to myself? That is your choice. And what sounds more attractive to you? So, this is something, it's not about forgiving others and being larger, oh, he did all very bad things and I'm so big that I forgive. And this is not what we are talking about. We are talking about helping ourselves. Helping ourselves so that we can make our life joyful, cheerful, enthusiastic, and not like you're caught with events and they keep you keep repeating like this record. Some of you must have lived in an age where there were these black records. You've seen that? Gramophone? What is it called?
Yeah.
And suppose the needle is stuck in one place. What? It'll keep repeating the same thing again and again and again. And in fact, that's what we keep doing. The event perhaps occurred 20 years ago, but we are still carrying it and we are repeating it, and it holds us hostage. And it determines how we look at what is going to happen to us, which are new events, but this becomes the lens through which everything is seen. And that it costs us a lot. So this is why that resentment is something that we need to free ourselves from. And how does resentment manifest? In terms of violent thoughts. Violent thoughts towards other people. So what do you do? So what you do is, when it comes, don't say, oh my God, I don't want it. It is like, somebody tells you, don't think of an elephant. What will happen? You'll think of the elephant because somebody told you not to do it, right? So the mind is like that. The more you try to discipline it and say, don't do it, the more it will feel like doing it, right? And it will become a struggle. So when those kind of thoughts do come, then you just replace that particular thought with another thought, which is a different thought, right? And this particular thing is called pratipaksha bhavana. So it's not like you're lying to yourself, but any given situation involves a given position, and then it also involves somebody can counter that position, which can also be quite valid, right? So what you do is gently try to see how the same situation can be seen from a given another standpoint. Like how I was saying that this judge who was in Nirbhaya case, initially she was so angry and she did what she had to do. She did sentence this juvenile person. It's not that you don't do it, but she understood his pain. And as she understood this little boy's pain, she did what she had to do. She gave him a sentence. But it was not out of this anger and, being totally dismissive and, being condemning or anything. She just understood this has to be done. But at the same time, she saw the other side of the story. And that, what it does is, right, it keeps your focus on what needs to be done, but all the pressures are taken care of. So this is why thought life non-violence is something which is not talked about, but we carry a lot of violence inside, which needs to be first cleaned up. The second is speech. And the speech and mind are little bit connected, because what you speak is what you think, right? What you think first, and then it comes out as an expression through your speech. Even while speaking, right? If you have a very one-sided opinion of anything, or if you are attacking people that you are like that, or this person is like a criminal. So these are very strong words. And even when, Swamiji used to say that when a couple, always they have issues, right? I mean, there is always some little fights. But they say that you remember what that person did 30 years ago. And then when there is a fight, then you're holding on to all the things that happened, and at that particular point in time, everything comes out. Yeah, and you did this 15 years ago, and then you're like that, and then you are like that, and then there is this issue which is in front. But what happens is it is so loaded with so many things. And it all becomes so heavy and so big in our head. And then there is another thing that we have to be a little bit careful about, and that is a little weightage, right? So let me give you some examples, right? So one thing about being a teacher for so many years is you meet a lot of people, and a lot of people come and tell you all kinds of things. So that you understand human mind and human struggles. And you have to. If you want to be a good teacher, So one couple came and they said, both are my students. They said that they can't get along with each other, and So I asked, so what is the problem? But they both trust me. They are both very friendly to me. So they say many different things. But what I noticed is when this woman was talking about her husband, so she was talking about many different things, but everything irritated her exactly the same, right? So one thing that irritated her is that her husband was, playing with the stock market and losing a lot of money. So that's a big thing, right? I mean, because that has repercussions on family finances. They have children, they have to support the children, and if you are like, over optimistic or irresponsible and all that, then of course it's a concern, and it's a legitimate concern. So she was extremely irritated by that, which I understand. But she was equally irritated by the fact that, he wants really hot food. And sometimes when she makes the food really hot, and then he has a call, and then he goes and he has to attend to the call, and then he again wants her to heat the food. Do you understand? The two things, I mean, I can understand every day something happens, it irritates, but are the two events of the same, do they have the same weightage? No. So the certain things that, other people do, which irritates you, it makes you not comfortable, and you can deal with it differently. And some issues are very big. They need to be handled and they have to be addressed. But in your mind, if the irritation is every small thing, it's a build-up. So whether it's the person is telling you to heat the food again, or the person is losing a lot of money, it all creates same level of irritation in you. So what does it mean? It's just so much build up, small things, big things. You're not able to distinguish. You're not able to see what needs just, it's just a different habit, and, nobody can change exactly to suit you. And there are certain things for which you need to stand up and you need to address and you need to talk about. But so much is held here without talking about it. And then it comes out in the speech. And how does it come out in the speech? You are so irresponsible. Accusative speech. You are so insensitive. Or even if you don't tell that person, you think like that. So either you're thinking like that or you are speaking like that. And all this is violence. And there is one thing which is a violence which people don't recognize. Some people come to me and they said when they were growing up, their parents, especially sometimes their mom, was telling them that I did not want you. And you will be surprised how many people. As a child, right, your whole universe is your parents. And the mother is telling you, I didn't plan to have you, or I didn't want you. The person is shattered.
Yeah, I'm still shattered.
You're shattered hearing this?
Hearing
this, right?
Yeah, so violent.
So violent.
Why? Why do they tell that?
So, this is something which is interesting, because even I was thinking about it. I said, which mother will tell the child that I didn't want you, right? And even initially, I was also so shocked. That's why I have it in my memory, because I'm like, who does this? But then, really when I thought about it, it's not like this evil mother, right? That's my first impression, who is doing, or insensitive, not evil, but insensitive mother who says. But of course there is some insensitivity for sure. But sometimes what happens is the woman is not happy in the home. So she thinks that, so she's not getting along with her husband. Then she thinks, oh my God, now the child has come. There is an added responsibility. Do you understand? It's a little bit of a helplessness also is not just condemning the child. Do you understand? Sometimes people are suffering.
Yes, of course.
And sometimes there is financial issues, like the people don't have enough money and they say, my God, how will I provide for one more child?
What I'm amazed is that they don't realize what they're saying to this child. That's how shattering.
That is. They don't realize, unfortunately. They don't realize. But what I want to say is that they don't always come from a very bad intention, right? Because there are certain issues that they themselves are facing, and it comes out as a result of their own pressure. But this is what we call violence in speech. Because that person, when the person does it, actually doesn't intend to be mean to the child. But it is a violence because it shatters the recipient.
It's very unconscious.
It is the unconscious. It is the unconscious which all the pressures that you are carrying within you, if you don't address, it all just comes out. And you don't know how it is going to impact. So people do this psychoanalysis all based on things that they have heard in childhood, which stays with them for rest of their life. And that governs their emotional life. It's all words that you have heard. So this is why this, speech is a power that is given to you. So for us, in the Vedic, the speech, the deity of the speech is fire. Fire has two things. Either it can light up things or it can destroy things. So how you try your best to be disciplined with your speech. You don't just say things which are all just like blabbering things. Intentional speech, thoughtful speech, discerning speech.
Is it possible to speak without thinking?
Sorry?
Is it
Possible to speak without thinking? Yes, sometimes you can do it. Suppose you are with friends and some days you just want to have a good time. So it's good. It's, sometimes it's not like every time you have to be so serious and so proper, and every time you have to be like, but make sure that you don't hurt anybody. Sometimes it can be a fun speech. You're talking about a movie or you're telling a joke, and that's fine. It's not like everything has to be like so serious and so truthful. Then what happens is you become like too stiff and too this, you don't want to do. You want to be a relaxed human being and a free human being. But as far as possible, try not to harm, not to say harsh things to people. But speech without thinking is not possible. But impulsive is possible. Impulsive means that a situation triggers a certain response, some certain pressure, and then you just lash out without thinking about the appropriateness of what you are saying and what you are doing. That's what happens when a fight begins, right? It doesn't start, but it gets all heated and you get triggered and your buttons are pushed, and then what? Things come out. And that happens to all of us. It's not like one person or another person, all of us. Unless we pay attention and we make it. That's why there is a value. I'm sure some of you who studied Tattva Bodha, Dhamma and Shama. You know what Dhamma and Shama is? People who've studied Tattva Bodha, tell me, what is Dhamma and what is Shama?
That is being aware of your thought or being aware of your action if you can't help the thought.
Exactly, right? So there are two things that, it's a very interesting thing, right? Suppose I tell you not to think about certain things. That's why we don't say not to think about. What we say is, when that thought comes, it requires a correction. Do you see the difference? Thought comes without your permission. So it comes, right? But what do you do with that thought is your free will. You use your free will to decide, what am I going to do with this thought? Am I going to just let it go? Am I going to build on it? Am I going to correct it? What am I going to do with this thought? Right? So, what is Dhamma? A thought has come. Anger has come. Something is pushed. And the button is pushed and you are angry. And the anger doesn't take your permission and come. So it happens. But you consciously choose not to use violent language. That you can do. You cut that whole chain. That you can do, and you be a little bit more aware about what you are saying and what is the impact. And as far as possible, even in those heated moments, you can talk more and more about yourself rather than you are like that, you are like that, you are like that. That's an accusatory language. You blame others, you condemn others, you dismiss others. But you can say, I'm feeling hurt. You can say, I'm feeling sad. Because that's the truth. And it doesn't put the other person in defensive. The person doesn't feel attacked.
Or you can speak appreciative of other people.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
That of course.
Yeah.
Appreciative of other people is wonderful, but I'm talking about when you're a little triggered. And then it's a little hard to speak appreciative. But you're right. I mean, yes, generally, this is also another thing that he's saying, which is, I think, really, really important. And that is how many times we give positive feedback to anybody. We have to learn to do it. So what it means is, one day one young student, 16, 17-year-old, he came to me and he was really a sweet boy and he was asking many questions, and I told him that you're so smart and you're so discerning. You know what was his reaction? He started crying. He said, nobody has actually praised me. This is the first time I'm hearing somebody appreciating me. And it's not that I'm the first one who perhaps thought that he was smart. Many people may have seen something positive in him, but we all have the habit of only pointing out the problems. We don't have the habit of saying, yeah, you are good, you are intelligent, you are nice. And genuinely, not to flatter people and not to be fake. We are not talking about fake. But a genuine feedback and a genuine praise, I tell you, it can be so therapeutic. It can be so therapeutic. And one thing is, you look into people's eyes and you validate them, and you say something which is genuine, which is truthful, which is something nice that you see about others. And it will change. It will change how the person thinks about oneself, thinks your relationship with that person. So speech, exactly, it's not only about expressing pain, but also appreciation. This is very, very important. We don't express our appreciation enough. You had a question?
Sometimes it isn't sometimes better to bring my anger out for release me from the pressure. So that I feel better and have not this pressure. Otherwise, I have this thought and it goes on and it goes on.
Yes.
Goes on. Couldn't it be better to bring it out?
Yes. So yes, absolutely. It is good to bring it out because otherwise it goes in circles. So one of the things, how would you take it out?
How?
Yeah, how? What would you do to take it out?
Yeah, this is the problem. I have to. That's what I'm thinking. I have to bring it out, not to violate the other person. That's right, but it's often not possible.
But there are certain things, what you are saying is absolutely right. You have to take it out, but not in front of the person, but you have to take it out of your system. And there are different methods, right? One thing that, in fact, I'm surprised that even Swamiji used to say that if you have a lot of anger, then you can throw things in your room, not in presence of anybody. You can beat the pillow because, this is why people love boxing. And why? Because all your anger and all your aggression, it gets an expression. It gets a physical expression. It's not all just here. And the other very important method is to write. Because we have layers and layers and layers and layers of things, and we don't even know what all is stored here and what all is governing our behaviors and our emotional life. So what he used to say is, initially on the surface, we all have superficial thoughts. But when you write about, don't skip those thoughts. When you write about those thoughts, the mind has expressed those thoughts, then the next level of thoughts will come. And then when you have expressed those thoughts, the next level of thoughts will come. So what then happens is, and your mind has connected stories, right? Your mom did not like you and you are resentful and she told you this, but you're also resentful towards your dad because he did not protect you. Do you understand? So things get a little complex. Then what you did is, when your boyfriend, you were in love, but this impression of, oh, my mom did not like me, interferes, and you keep projecting on him that he doesn't like me. So there is a whole big chain. Do you understand? One thing is like, all interconnected. So this is connected to this, then this is connected to this, and when you start writing it, it is extremely therapeutic. Because you actually also see how your mind has been connecting things. When you talk about this, your mind will take you to next event. And then it will take you to the next thing. And it will take you to the next thing. And one day, during the 3.5-year course, Swamiji asked all of us to write. Because all of us have something or the other. It's not possible that you come completely clean slate. And you do need to process it so that it leaves you once and for all. So that, your mind is fresh and clean. So these are some of the ways in which you can actually free yourself. And what is interesting is, at that particular point in time, if you're really angry, don't try to censor it. Don't try to say, oh my God, how can I have such thoughts? These are your thoughts and you're not expressing it to anybody else. You want to free yourself from this. So don't try to kind of censor it or to filter it. Just take it all out. And the purpose is, it then, once you have written, then you can read what you have written. But what has then happened is, what is inside is no longer inside. It is outside now. And then what you do, and this is also very important, tear it off. And it is symbolic. What is symbolic? Tear it off. It is symbolic. What does it mean? It now, first it was inside, it is outside, and now I am freeing myself from it. Once and for all. That chapter is closed.
But it doesn't mean that actual problems has been solved.
No, but we are not talking about external problem being solved. We are talking about healing ourselves. Because the external problems become internal issues. Your mind is not free. You are, caught with your resentment, you're caught with your hatred, you're caught with your sadness, you're caught with your anger. We are not trying to solve external problems. We are trying to free our mind from all these different baggages that we have been carrying. So it's free mind. So this is Ahimsa at the level of speech, and the third Ahimsa is at the level of action. So at the level of action, as I told you, we are not murderers, and we are not going to go and hopefully punch people and physically harm them. But we also then, in the book Value of Values, Swamiji talks about, physical harming also means your eating habits.
What did you say?
Eating habits.
Eating habits.
So what it means is that if you don't hesitate to kill somebody, right? Eating is something that you do 3 times a day. It's not a small activity. And you are born with a program. I don't want to be harmed and others don't want to be harmed. This is a program. And then you go against that program, and then you think that somebody else's life is less important than yours. And you can do what you want with their life so that it can end up on your plate. then what happens is, look at the distortions, right? Then you have to have, because there are not enough animals, then you have to have livestock industry where you rear animals. Then you inject them because you want to be free from contamination. Then you put hormones because you want nice meaty meat. Then you don't allow them to roam around. Just keep them in one place. Then in the slaughterhouse, right, they see there is one hole, they are all lining up. And the animal sees the previous one being cut. And then the animal knows are the next one. And that, that kind of a panic that the animal has when he is giving up one's life. And then it gets nicely cleaned, packed in a supermarket. And you don't think about it. So this is something that we need to think about. We are not here preaching anything, right? But this is the reality that you need to think about. And so I think John Lennon was a vegetarian, and somebody asked him, why are you a vegetarian? And he said that if the slaughterhouses had glass doors, nobody would eat meat. What does it mean? That if you saw what is happening, the bloodshed, the cry, the pain, the violence, perhaps, and you have other options. It's not like you don't have other options. Then perhaps you would very naturally and happily choose other options. So this is something which is what Ahimsa at the level of thoughts, speech and action. And as I told you, towards whom? So this is the Vedic culture, and it's a beautiful culture. Why? Because it is not only talking about Ahimsa towards human beings, it's also talking about Ahimsa towards animals, animal kingdom. And it is also talking about Ahimsa towards plant kingdom. So this little insensitivity that we all humans, all of us, we have, right? What? Deforestation, cut forest so that you can build, bridges and buildings and whatever, right? Complete regard for the plant kingdom, for ecology. So that is something which is, what was the planet like maybe 200 years ago and what the planet is like today? All the green covers are all gone, they're replaced by concrete, and it is just, and this is the doing of all of us. And total disregard. And somebody asked me that nowadays there is so much awareness about the environment. People are careful, right? The people recycle, people take care of forestation, and there are all these new methods of carbon footprint, and I don't know what, I don't understand much, but people do what they can to ecology and saving the environment has become a huge thing. And some people were asking me, is this new movement towards environmental preservation and all, and the Vedic view, is there any difference or is it exactly the same? And what I told them is that yes, it's good that we have this environmental awareness, but if you really think about what motivates us to take care of the environment is what? Because our life is in danger. So what is the motivation? It threatens my survival, therefore I have to take care of the environment.
It's just ego, it's not for the total.
Yeah, it's not for the total. What is the Vedic view? All that is here is Ishvara. It manifests in so many different ways, and each thing is connected to the other. It's all through this grand order of things. And all of us are born with a certain understanding that what you don't want to be harmed and you don't harm others. So, honoring that, having sensitivity towards that. Time. Okay. So, this is one part of Ahimsa towards all three. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Guru. Okay, so the next class is at 11:30. I stopped.